We'll let you wait and take a foot. Where'd you go?
I'm right here.
He's right there.
I'm sneaking up.
Is everybody seated? The photographer wants to take a picture of the witnesses here. If we could get the members out of the way, we'd do that. Everybody's hair combed. Mine is. So's yours, Chris. It looks good. Okay, meeting called to order. Thank you. Pursuant to Standing Order 1082, subject matter of Bill C-26, an act to amend the Canadian Pension Plan, the Canadian Pension Plan Investment Board Act, and the Income Tax Act. Witnesses are here today to speak on Bill C-26. So, first of all, welcome everyone. We would like to hold witnesses to about 5 minutes if we could, so that we get plenty of time for questions. Pat Trask, I believe you're going to be first with the Saskatchewan Seniors Association Incorporated. Good to see you. You and I used to be colleagues 25 years ago. Welcome.
Thanks, Wayne. I
She can sit. You can
Yes.
You can tell her she can sit.
You can sit past Pat. You can sit at the table. You're fine to sit.
Okay, all right, whatever.
I know this is your first appearance.
That's right.
But we're not as tough as the NFU used to be in those days.
Thank you, Wayne. As Wayne said, my name is Pat Trask. I'm from Saskatchewan. I live in Saskatoon now. I represent the Saskatchewan Seniors Association. I'm the president of that group, and I just got that job in June. So I'm not up to par yet with everything that I'm supposed to know. And indeed, it was late Friday when I was summoned to replace someone else. So I didn't have a lot of ground information. I downloaded a whole bunch of stuff, but I decided I'm not up to par on everything that you want to discuss or ask questions on. As I said, I represent the seniors, and the seniors, as you know, always need more money. And they're right on with us asking for the increase in the Canada Pension Plan.
You are.
I apologize that I'm not a good working part of this committee tonight, but I would answer any questions if you want to know anything about my background or about Saskatchewan in general.
All right, we'll go to questions with you later. Is that what you're suggesting?
Whenever.
Okay, good. Canadian, thank you, Pat. Canadian Federation of Independent Business, Ms. Morneau. Morneau.
Thank you, Chair. That's becoming a common mistake for me, so I will just reinforce I am not related to our cherished finance minister. It's Morrow at the end. So thank you for the opportunity to be here today to share the small business owner perspective on premium increases to the Canada Pension Plan. And you should have a slide presentation in front of you that I'd like to walk you through in the next few minutes. As many members know, CFIB is a not-for-profit, nonpartisan organization representing more than 109,000 small and medium-sized businesses across Canada. Our members represent all sectors of the economy and are found in every region of the country. It's important to remember that Canada's SMEs employ 70% of Canadians working in the private sector, are responsible for the bulk of new job creation, and represent about half of Canada's GDP. Addressing issues of importance to them can have a widespread impact on job creation and the economy. CFIB takes its direction solely from our members through a variety of surveys throughout the year, and in all previous member surveys on this topic, a strong majority of our members have told us they will be directly impacted by CPP premium increases. The state of the economy has a big impact on small business and the middle class. As you see on slide 3, one of the surveys CFIB conducts is our monthly business barometer. Our latest barometer shows that small business confidence dropped in October, sitting at 57.7, 1 point down from its previous barometer in September. Ideally, we want to see this index between 65 and 70 when the economy is growing at its full potential. Although employment plans tend to fluctuate seasonally, this October's downward turn was far sharper than usual. As you see on slide 4, the blue line shows the percentage of respondents planning to hire, that is 10, and the red line are those planning to lay off, which is 21. Normally, we like to see these lines quite far apart, as we did in earlier 2016. Like many other government programs, the biggest issue around CPP increases is awareness. As you see on slide 5, 40% of Canadians think the government pays into their portion of CPP, and nearly 3/4 of Canadians don't realize that current retirees will not benefit from the proposed expansion. In fact, nearly 1/4 of current retirees wrongly believe they will see their larger CPP benefits as a result of the proposed expansion. It is unclear to most Canadians that it will take up to 40 years of increased premiums in order for a worker to see the full impact of these increases on their CPP benefits. Small business owners don't have money hiding under the mattress waiting for government tax hikes. As indicated on slide 6, if CPP QPP is increased, even if it results in higher future benefits, 2/3 of business owners indicated they would feel pressure to freeze or cut salaries, while nearly half would be forced to reduce investments in their business. This impact comes at a time when the government is trying to encourage innovation, investment in business, and job creation in small firms. On slide 7, you'll see that employed Canadians also oppose a CPP hike. Nearly 70% indicated they oppose an increase if the consequences mean a freeze in their wages or salary, while 83% were opposed to the plan if increases led to a cut in their wages or salary. As you can see on slide 8, if employed Canadians had extra money to save for retirement, they would firstly invest in RSPs and TFSAs over other savings vehicles such as the CPP QPP. Small business employers also favor such savings vehicles if they had the opportunity to contribute towards the retirement savings of their employees. If the government is trying to help Canadians save more for retirement, as you can see on slide 9, only 18% of Canadians are choosing mandatory CPP increases. There are a variety of other options available, including reducing taxes, creating new incentives for savings, and allowing employees to voluntarily contribute to their own CPP/QPP. Putting pressure on financial institutions to lower their fees for management fees for retirement savings vehicles is also an important consideration. It is clear Canadians are uninformed about CPP and want the government to consult with them before proceeding with their plans to expand. As you see on slide 10, nearly 80% of Canadians, many of whom form the middle class, want to share their views with government. Small business owners also want the opportunity to engage with government on this issue, as 90% of them indicated. We strongly recommend that the federal government encourage their provincial counterparts to engage in consultation, and we also ask the federal government to recall their promise made in Budget 2016, where they said, quote, "The government will launch consultations to give Canadians an opportunity to share their views on enhancing the Canada Pension Plan." Finally, if the government does intend to go ahead without consulting Canadians, we suggest they adopt the following mitigating measures. First, they exempt the first $27,000 of income from additional CPP increases, similarly to what the Quebec government is proposing. Second, they could offer up tax savings by sticking to their promise to reduce the small business tax rate. Third, implement a permanent lower EI rate for small businesses. And lastly, exempt self-employed Canadians who pay double the amount of CPP from these increases. These conclude my remarks. Thank you for the opportunity, and I am happy to take your questions. Je note que je serai très heureuse à répondre à vos questions.
I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have in French.
Thank you very much, Ms. Morrell. Turning to the Canadian Labour Congress, Mr. Yesef and Mr. Roberts.
First of all, Chair and members, good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you here today. It's a pleasure, of course, for me to speak to this bill. I'm very, of course, proud to be here today in regard to this discussion. The Canadian Labour Congress, of course, as you know, speaks on behalf of 3.3 million workers across this country. Every day, of course, in this country, unions bargain pensions on behalf of our members across this country. But the labour movement believes that all workers should be able to retire in dignity after a lifetime, of course, work, regardless of whether or not they have a union. The Canada Pension Plan is a critical part, of course, the retirement security of Canadians. The universal CPP delivers a secure and predictable benefit in retirement protected against inflation. The problem, of course, the CPP benefit was set too low when it was, of course, created back in 1965. It pays a benefit of just 25% of pensionable earnings below the average wage. So we have been fighting, of course, to improve the CPP from the very beginning. 7 years ago, the Canadian Labour Congress, of course, in 2009, the CLC and its member unions decided that once again to redouble our fight to expand the Canada Pension Plan. If we had not campaigned, of course, tirelessly for the last 7 years to expand the Canada Pension Plan, we would not be here today having this discussion. So there is no exaggeration in regard to this point. Both our allies and opponents acknowledge that the labour movement was pivotal in getting, of course, this agreement. In the beginning, we had little support. Not a single province supported the expansion of the CPP. The federal government was opposed. And as always, the banks and the insurance company opposed any expanded CPP. We were not deterred. We mobilized our activists across this country. We educate our members, of course, and the public about an expanded CPP. We patiently explained to anyone, who would listen, why it makes sense, of course, to expand the Canada Pension Plan. Gradually, we began to win over senior, student, anti-poverty organizations, and of course, provinces and politicians alike. The Federation of Canadian Municipalities unanimously endorsed our call to double the Canada Pension Plan. The Canadian Federation of Students, of course, backed our proposal. Pension expert economists were on our side. Of course, newspaper editorials of boards endorsed the expanded CPP. Polls show that Canadians supported an improved CPP in every region, in every age group, in every income bracket, regardless of party affiliation. Gradually, the province, of course, came to understand why Canadians need a better CPP. Only the federal government stood in its way. And at one time, even then, former finance minister, late finance minister Jim Flaherty, supported an expanded CPP. The labour movement made CPP an expansion, an election issue in the last election in 2015. And we helped, of course, change the federal government. So I'm happy and proud, of course, to say that the labour movement consistently effort what got us here today. Critics continue to make the same tireless argument against expanding the CPP. They say that most Canadians don't need a better pension. They say that rising house prices, of course, RRSP will provide Canadians with a dignity in retirement. They say the sky would fall, of course, contribution rise modestly over a gradual phase-in period. These arguments, of course, have been discredited in the past. They have been rejected by Canadians. Bill C-26, of course, is a result of a long struggle, and we are proud to see it proceed. This is a historical achievement on behalf of Canadians in our country. For the first time in 50 years, the Canada Pension Plan benefits will improve. I want, of course, to thank personally Minister Morneau and, of course, the provincial governments for their hard work and leadership in getting us this deal. The bill before you today, Bill C-26, isn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination. For instance, we fail to see why child-rearing dropout provision isn't extended to the enhanced benefit. This may have been an oversight, and it needs to be fixed, of course, before the legislation is adopted by the House. We urge the committee to include child-rearing provisions in the new benefit. But make no mistakes, Bill C-26 is a historic and a significant improvement in the CPP benefits for working Canadians. At a time when public pensions, of course, are in retreats around the world, Canada's leadership sends a beacon to working people everywhere. This is a proud moment that we Canadians could celebrate. On behalf, of course, the Congress, we thank you very much for inviting us to present before the committee here today.
Thank you. Thank you very much. With the Confederation des Syndicats Nationaux, Ms. Jankas, Ms. Levesque, and Mr. Eno. Ms. Levesque, I believe you're leading off.
Oui.
Go ahead.
Merci, Monsieur Easter, de nous permettre.
Thank you, Mr. Easter. Thank you on behalf of the CSN for inviting us here today. We represent some 2,000 unions, and it's a pleasure to come testify before the Finance Committee on this very important subject, the future of pension plans in Canada. First of all, I would like to applaud the initiative because it will improve the financial security of Canadians on retirement, and we believe that this is a very laudable objective. Most Canadians on retirement draw most of their income from the pension plan. There are two measures included in the bill, two primary measures, and we approve both of them. The one to increase revenue replacement from 25% to 33%, and the second measure, which is taking into account a higher percentage of salary in income replacement. We agree with both those provisions, but nonetheless believe that it should take a little less time to put them into practice because for a number of years ahead, many Canadians who lack income during retirement will see no benefit from these new measures because it'll take a long time for them to be implemented. These measures are a step in the right direction, we believe, but it's important to take many other components into account and to consolidate other pillars of the income protection system, including private plans and other components such as guaranteed income supplement and old age security. The poorest workers, well, for them we would have liked the measure that guarantees an increase in their benefits be not a tax measure, but rather one that's incorporated into the pension system, because it would be much faster to put into plan. And we would have preferred options that would actually increase the amount of income for those who earn the least. Those who are at 10 to 50% of the poverty line. The other issue is integration with private pension plans. In the current proposal, we do see what we consider an advancement, a more level playing field, given that the past few years have been very difficult. Pension plans had seen reductions, cuts in a variety of measures, and what we're seeing on the employer side is that they too are required to maintain their corporate pension plans. Where there are none, measures have to be taken to help establish them, because as workers, that's one of the greatest difficulties we have. The pillars that altogether make up retirement, we want to make sure that what's given with one hand isn't taken away with the other. And we don't find ourselves in a position where the poorest workers have their retirement income improved on one hand and then decreased on the other. We do applaud this legislation. We believe it's insufficient, though. It's not going to settle all the problems with the Canadian pension plan, but it is an improvement by increasing the benefits from 25 to 33%. That does help, but most workers will still not achieve the level of savings they need to provide a sufficient level of income replacement in retirement. So the low level of savings among Canadians is an issue. Canadian employers are withdrawing from their obligations more and more. Obligations include establishing corporate pension plans and contributing to their employees' savings. That is explained by the fact that there is no legislation in Canada that obliges companies to establish a pension plan. By requiring contributions from employees and employers, we help establish a system that protects the savings and retirement of employees and does not require them to rely on savings alone. The international experience shows that individual savings are not the most efficient way to go ahead. It's also very difficult for individuals to manage the funds they need as they need to ensure a safe and satisfactory retirement. For all the above reasons, we applaud this initiative, and we would very much like to see reflection in this area continue so that we can move forward and make sure that all Canadians have a better income in retirement.
Canadian Union of Public Employees, Mr. Jansen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the committee members for having CUPE here today. CUPE is Canada's largest trade union. We have 639,000 members across the country. Pensions are a very big deal for our members. Half of our members don't have good defined benefit plans in their workplace, so this is an important issue for our members, their families, and their communities. The labour movement, as the CLC representative said, has long been a champion of Canada's public pension system and seeing it grow. At a similar committee hearing to this in 1965, Labour representatives appeared and said that they endorsed the creation of the Canada Pension Plan in that year, but were sharply critical of the too limited nature or the too limited level of the benefits that were provided. The 25% replacement rate that was set out at the day remains today. So at the time, Labour representatives called for CPP benefits to be doubled. The government did not listen and implemented what we saw as a very a modest pension system. So in choosing a very modest public pension plan, Canada really put all their eggs in the basket of a private pension system that needed to work very well. And the CPP just turned 50. It's a good time to look back. We now have 50 years of evidence showing us quite clearly that this private pension system wasn't working very well for most Canadians. We've never had a situation where most Canadians had a pension at work. Today, 6 in 10 Canadians don't have a pension at work. Those who do have pensions are seeing their plans become less generous and less secure over recent decades. The individual systems of the RSP and the tax-free savings account simply aren't working for most Canadian workers. So you add all this up, it's no surprise that study after study showed we were facing a big problem, that Canadians simply weren't saving enough, and that future generations of retirees were looking at very steep drops in living standards unless something was done. And that problem was actually projected to get worse with each subsequent generation. So clearly something had to be done. So in 2009, as the CLC said, the Labour movement revived our 50-year campaign to see CPP benefits increased. So we were, the Labour movement and CUPE were very strongly supportive of the deal that was struck in June. We recognize changing the CPP is not an easy thing to do. The two-thirds rule makes this harder to do than changing the Canadian Constitution. So, we applaud the federal government and the provincial governments for sitting down and getting that job done. Like others here, while we recognize this is an important step forward, we also can't escape the fact that we were calling for a doubling of CPP benefits, and the increase provided in C26 goes only about a third of the way to getting there. So, we will, CUPE is still going to continue to fight for better public pensions for all Canadians. Like the CLC, we are extremely concerned about the dropout provisions in C26. The child rearing dropout and the disability dropout that I know you discussed at committee yesterday. Those have been long-standing provisions of the existing CPP, and the C26, we were surprised to see that these provisions would not apply to the expanded portion of CPP. At first, we thought this must have been an oversight and should have been an easy fix, but yesterday, departmental officials confirmed that this was actually intentional. So these two provisions have been long-standing aspects of the CPP. The child rearing provision was introduced in 1977 under the Liberal government of Pierre Trudeau with much fanfare. Ministers of the day said the provision, and I quote, would ensure that a contributor who remains at home to care for young children will not be penalized for that period which he or she has low or zero earnings, and that parents should not be penalized under the CPP for undertaking a socially desirable and necessary task. Now, this child-rearing provision has mostly been used by women. It's helped women narrow but not close the gap between what they earn in the CPP and what Canadian men earn under the CPP. On average, for every dollar a Canadian man earns, a Canadian woman on average earns about 70 cents in the CPP. And that's with the child-rearing provision intact. So if the child-rearing provision was not there, that 70 cents would certainly be lower. The same point on the disability dropout. This has been a long-standing provision of CPP since day one. This has been part of the Canada Pension Plan. It ensures that workers who are forced to collect CPP disability payments do not see their CPP retirement payments suffer as a result. They're simply allowed to drop those years of zero or low earnings from their CPP calculation. So in our view, these are very important principles within the CPP. They're equity provisions within the plan. They've worked well for decades, and we don't see why they should not continue to work well into the future under the expanded CPP. They're still going to apply to the base CPP going forward. They should apply on the same basis to the expanded CPP. We wonder if the provinces were aware that these provisions would not apply when the deal was signed in June, and if they know now. And the discussion yesterday at committee clearly showed this has not been costed by the Chief Actuary's Office or Department of Finance officials. We would suggest it's a pretty a simple first step could be taken at the committee to find out what this is going to cost on that side of the ledger, but then on the benefit side of the pension ledger, run some numbers and find out what this is going to mean for women going forward, for Canadians with disabilities in terms of the CPP checks we expect they're going to receive under the expanded portion of CPP. These are important principles. They've applied for decades, and they should absolutely continue to apply. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jansen. Turning then to questions, 7-minute round. Mr. McKinnon.
Merci, Monsieur le Président, et merci à tout le monde.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, everyone. Welcome to the Finance Committee, and thank you for sharing your views with us. My first question is to Ms. Moreau. As usual, you are always ready to represent your members' views. I also consult small and medium-sized businesses, not only in my riding, but across Canada. And they are not, as you did, decrying the new plan. They also reflect the projections that we received by the department. Even though the impact will be modest on both sides, in the short term there'll be a slight impact on employment, but in the long term, the effect of these changes will be very healthy, both on the employment side and for Canadian growth. So how do you explain the gap between the very pessimistic views that you describe and the economic outlook based on real data that we have from the Department of Finance? Thank you for your question. I would say that we do support the notion, and the notion that everyone who retires should be able to live in dignity after having worked for many years. I represent the views of 900,000 odd members. So what I'm saying is that even if there may be a gap between our views or the views of those I represent and others, and you've heard the background on efforts that have been made to improve the Canada Pension Plan, we have always tried to present the positions of SMEs, some of which will not be able to afford the cost of these changes. That's why I'm putting forward the opinions of our members, who say that 2/3 of them will be obliged to see how many employees they have and review that and look at their ability to hire employees. There is lack of training from the government. They haven't taken the opportunity to consult us directly as representatives of SMEs. So in our view, there will be a broader impact on SMEs. These impacts may continue for years. And we do support the government's efforts to look for opportunities to support SMEs in the next 10, 15 years. I think we should be very focused on the views of our businesses and our entrepreneurs. I would suggest, though, that There have been consultations. The provinces consulted. We're consulting today. We're consulting you. And the figures, tables, are all well known. We're also going to wait for many years before these changes are fully implemented, before the new deductions are fully implemented. So don't you believe that there might be a gap between the disastrous scenario that you describe and the data that we see that's based on the economy and on the science, the data we received? Perhaps that's due to lack of communication. We did conduct an Ipsos survey, and many Canadians think that the government, almost half of Canadians believe the government contributes to CPP. So if your information shows that things aren't going to get any worse, I would encourage you to communicate that message to the public more effectively. In spite of the changes that will be made, many Canadians will still not understand how the system works. They don't now. So there's a great deal of education needed. Thank you, Ms. Moreau. A question for Ms. Lévesque. My riding is in Quebec, and Quebec has begun the QPP exercise in its province. So what would you have to say about the expanded plan that Quebec intends to establish? Thank you. In Quebec, we did speak to the government on the QPP, but the thrust of our remarks is exactly the same. What you are seeing, what we are seeing here today in C26, I think that it's very important that we take measures to enhance and expand the percentage of contributions to the retirement plan. It's also important that we ensure better coverage of the plan. So, same comments. We need measures that will make sure that we're not creating costs for future generations. And we see that we're still working with our government to see how Quebec, what approach Quebec takes. So that's an excellent example of working together and consensus between Quebec and other Canadian provinces. Yes, well, certainly an excellent example of cohesion. We're saying the same thing, really. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. McKinnon and witnesses, Mr. Deltel.
Monsieur le Président, Messieurs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Canada's Parliament and to the Finance Committee. My first questions will be to the CSN. Welcome to Ottawa. You said that you supported the spirit of the bill while pointing out two issues that concern you. Yesterday we had experts from finance, from the Department of Finance, that pointed out it would take 40 years before the full impact of this would reach all Canadians, and people who are retired now would see no benefit from the changes. So you have some concerns about that. You'd like it to happen a bit more quickly. You also said briefly, and I want to make sure I understood, you would not like to see increases for the people earning the least. Is that correct? Is that what you said? I'm looking at Ms. Jonca. You came up with an acronym, and I'd like some details. If I may, I'll answer your question. What we're saying is that it is a good idea. People earning well do have to have credits accumulating, but we don't want people with lower earnings to have to contribute more because they already don't earn very much. So we want to cover 50% of the YMPE. So people earning around 25,000 will be entitled to the tax credit. But if you earn less than 25,000, you can't afford to contribute to your retirement. What's provided for in the bill is a tax credit that will compensate for that contribution. Would it not have been better to have a mechanism that simply erases the contribution? Tax credits are linked in the bill to the contribution, but over time the tax credit may not continue to reflect the exact amount of the contribution low-income people have to make. There's nothing really linking those two figures. So making the contribution by setting the contribution of low-income employees at zero would be more effective, perhaps, and would prevent it from having to be linked to a tax credit that may no longer apply as it does now. We're certainly in agreement over the impact this will have on people earning on low-income employees. We would, of course, like there to be no impact on all workers, but that's difficult. Thank you for providing those details. Mr. Chairman, we see things a little bit differently because as far as we're concerned, less money in the pockets of Canadians is never a good thing, and we would like the people themselves to be able to choose where they make their contributions. In your document, and this question is to the CFIB, you said that more than half of Canadians would like an opportunity to contribute to programs like RRSPs, TFSAs, or other vehicles. So could I hear more on that? As I said earlier, our members and SMEs across Canada all want to save for the future. And they see that other vehicles might provide more effective means to save for the future, especially our members who have to pay those contributions, regardless of whether their company turns a profit in any given year. Expansion of the plan is going to have a very significant impact on them. Now, for an individual workers, the average cost would be $1,000 per employee. What, in your view, will be the impact that could have on a small business that is already facing a carbon tax imposed by the Liberal government and won't get the tax cut it was promised, that 9% tax cut? In addition, they'll have an additional burden of $1,000 a year per employee for the pension fund. What impact do you think that'll have on SMEs? Well, most of the SMEs on average have 11 employees. Take a small convenience store, grocery store in your area. $11,000 a year is quite a sum. You talked about the carbon tax. We don't know what the details of it are, but it will, I imagine, have an impact. Then there's EI, which is going up for SMEs this year as well. In 2017, it's going up because the tax credit for SMEs has not been renewed for 2016. So we are looking at an environment that's going to be very difficult for SMEs, and in 2019 it's going to be carrying on along the same lines. Do these additional burdens stimulate more wealth, do you believe, in Canada or not? Well, I'm going to let my members answer. A percentage of them said, 46% of them said that if this increase went ahead, even though there will be future profits and higher benefits in the future, they will have to invest less in their businesses. So that will have a negative impact on salaries and the number of employees they hire. Thank you. I'm very interested in your remarks. What concerns us in all this is that it's not the government that creates jobs, but the private sector. You are the cornerstone of our economy. So with all these additional financial burdens, do you believe that there will be a negative impact and people will not only stop investing but will start laying off people, because $11,000 a year is quite a heavy burden for an SME? Well, you've answered your own questions. Our members have said that with the expanded plan, they will have difficulty in continuing to hire people, continuing to invest in their business. Moreover, they will see fewer opportunities to invest in corporate pension plans for their employees because they will have to share the cost of the CPP. So an employee might have preferred a bonus that year rather than have the employer invest in his or her pension plan. That might help them to pay for other expenditures in their lives that are necessary at that time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all of you for your valuable time and coming back here to express your concerns and views. We really appreciate it. I would like to direct a question to Mr. Jansen on his remarks. At any point during the years of the debate over the CPP expansion, did you have any indication, or your union have any indication, that the child rearing or disability dropouts were on the table for CPP expansion?
No, and as I said today, it was a surprise to us to not see them included. The release that the finance ministers made in June, the document that they put out, said nothing about this, the signed document. And the backgrounder they produced at the time said nothing about this. So it was really only when we saw the legislation. During the years of talks, we had not heard that this was an item to be discussed and perhaps changed.
Okay, and yesterday we had some government officials here, and they said the child rearing and disability dropouts were subsidies within the plan. Do you agree with that? They're subsidies?
Well, I think my views would be more in line with the Trudeau government of 1977 when they brought this measure in and said, what this does is doing away with the subsidy that flows from the unpaid work in the home that serves to penalize the person doing that unpaid work under the CPP. They saw that as an unfair subsidy from that person to Canadian society as a whole. So they saw fit to correct that subsidy through the CPP, and they did so, and it's worked well for 40 years. So I don't agree that that having this mechanism there as a subsidy. I would argue that if we do away with this, we add a much more inequitable subsidy to the Canadian pension landscape.
Okay, so Mr. Jansen, do you know the effect of the absence of the dropouts will have on the gaps between future CPP pensions and those who would have used these provisions versus those who would not?
Yes, you're asking about a dollar impact on a CPP benefit for a person with the dropouts versus
absolutely
without. We don't know those numbers. The finance officials in the chief actuary's office yesterday were asked directly about that, and they responded that they didn't have those figures and hadn't run those figures. They're really the only people who can do those kind of calculations. As I said, the average woman today earns 70 cents on the dollar for the average man's CPP entitlement. That's with the child rearing dropout. If that dropout wasn't there, that 70 cents would be lower, no doubt.
Thank you. And Mr. Yusuf, I know your organization has worked very, very hard, and I give you kudos for being in the cooperation, the participation you've been doing in. But I know the CLC called on a 50%, from 33%, from 25 to 50%, a much bigger percentage, but it came out to be 33. And do you think that has a negative effect on the CLC or your organization of not receiving the 50% to the 33?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when we started the campaign, we recognized that 11 million Canadians today, that's 11 million who went to work today, have no workplace pension. And the only pension they're going to have when they retire, of course, is the Canada pension. And the fundamental challenge we face that we know that their savings are very low. And the reality is for the average Canadians, for male is a little bit over $500 and something per month that's currently being paid out under the CPP. For women, it's even less than that. It's around 474 something in that range. So when we were looking at, of course, what we would like to see happen to an expanded CPP, we figured doubling the CPP benefit over a phased-in period would be the appropriate way to proceed, because what this will do is ensure that those Canadians, of course, who are currently getting the average benefit will see a doubling of that benefit as this will phase in. Of course, we're not pleased that we ended up where we did, but again, it is a significant increase in the context, given for the last 50 years the benefit had not changed other than the inflation protection that Canadians get to receive a benefit on a regular basis. So it's a reasonable compromise. We also knew we had to convince the provinces and the federal government to land in the same place. And given the complexity of CPP changes, this was not an easy task. As my friend Mark Johnson noted, you require 66 2/3 of the provinces representing 66 2/3 of the population. So where they ended up, obviously, it was an improvement, but we would have preferred a been much larger improvement, because it took us 50 years to get to this stage. Yes. I hope it doesn't take us another 50 years to get to the next stage in improving the Canada Pension Plan.
So, Mr. Yusuf, do you anticipate the Labour movement will rethink its endorsement, given the recent information with the dropout of their child rearing and disabled?
Well, listen, I think this committee directly have a responsibility to amend the bill to fix that problem. This is an affront to women's equality in this country, and it's simply wrong. It was corrected in 1997, and we have no businesses going back and taking that away from women and people who are, of course, get disability benefit. However, the department came up with the draft. They made a fundamental mistake, in my view, and they need to be fixed, and this committee has a responsibility to fix that. More than half the workforce today are represented by women. To tell them that they are not going to be treated equally as men in the workforce, to me, is wrong, and I think this committee has a responsibility. Equally, the department should come back and say they made a mistake. This will do very little, I think, in trying to in terms of the premium increase. I think it disadvantaged two very important groups in this country, and in my view, it was never discussed during the enhancement, and it should not remain as part of the bill going forward when the House actually debate and finally vote on this bill at the third reading. I think it's fundamentally wrong, and this, given what the government has said about women's equality, I don't think this was intended, and I think it needs to be fixed. Fundamentally need to be fixed.
I appreciate that. Any more
one
time?
quick one, yep.
To Ms. Levesque. If I read you right, if I heard you right, you mentioned about the 25,000 and under. Those people would be exempted. Is that what I'm hearing? On that type of income, anybody making $25,000 and under?
Yeah, we want them to have the bill is good because they will have a credit on those even if they have a low salary, they will get the credit. So we're really happy for that because they need it. But at one point, what we don't think that things that could have been looked forward is that the credit that come to give them back their money, their contribution, is maybe not the good way, because there's no mechanism in the law that to see over the time in the next 20 or 25 years if those two mechanisms will stay the same, and if at one point the work credit will be moved or change, and that those people will end up paying the contribution and not get the refund by the fiscal. So maybe take time to find something in the Canadian pension plan, the pension plan, that maybe said the contribution is zero for those people. Don't collect them, like when you have a low salary, you don't pay. You sign something, you don't pay. When you, I think it's 10,000, you don't pay forward your tax.
What about the business? Do they pay?
Yeah, but the business has to pay the contribution. Yeah.
Thanks.
There, we're substantially over. Mr. Sabara.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and welcome everyone. Thank you for flying or driving here for a visit. Start off with a general comment about the CPP. You know, we live in a time when private employer pension plans are are declining as a percentage of coverage of the workforce. We live in a time when interest rates are very low, so there's a big disincentive for firms to continue to maintain what's called the defined benefit pension plan. And the CPP is a true defined benefit pension plan. You get it every month, it's stable, it's secure, it's indexed to inflation, and everyone contributes, and it's portable. So you can go from one employer to another employer. So the CPP has many advantages that I think are making an envy of the world. And I look at this improvement to the pension plan, the strengthening of a pension plan, which will ensure the next generation of workers and many current workers will receive greater benefits. The replacement rate goes up from 25 to 33%. It is graduated. Not everyone's going to pay the full amount. Not everyone's going to pay the less amount. And to the CFIB, Ms. Moreau, I understand your concerns. Small businesses, SMEs, are the backbone of our economy. We need them healthy. We need them robust. We need them employing Canadians. I worked at a McDonald's when I was growing up, and Tim Hortons and a Zellers, so I understand the local businesses need to be supported, and our government is supporting them through tax cuts to middle-class Canadians, increase in Canada Child Benefit, but we also need to make sure that workers today and tomorrow are taken care of and that they have a secure and dignified retirement. So I think we need to look at the bigger picture. This is an investment in Canadians. The other side likes to think not. I think it's an investment in Canadians and an investment in their retirement future. So I'm going to start off with Hussein over Mr. Youssef of the CLC, because I think I'd like to hear the feedback you're receiving from your members for our government's achievement in terms of being able to strengthen the retirement pension plan. And to Ms. Moreau, what else are you hearing from your constituency, small local businesses, which I visit on a daily basis when I'm in my riding and I talk to, whether it's a local Nicole's pastry shop or whether it's the Desserts Plus down the street? Mr. Hussein?
Well, I can tell you on a personal level, I spent the last 7 will be 8 years this December crisscrossing this country, talk to anyone that cared to listen why we should do this, and the fact that we have done it, I think it truly is an amazing achievement on behalf of Canadians. This will benefit young workers, of course, those who are entered the workforce currently or about to in the next little while, the greatest in this country. And more importantly, I think for the 11 million Canadians that I talked about will have the greatest benefit, because for those people, those individuals who work just as hard as me and my members, they don't have a workplace pension. They rely on the CPP to get their entire benefits when they do. They're fortunate enough to provide savings through whatever mechanism, kudos to them. But the reality is our organization and the activists see this truly as a remarkable achievement, given that they spend so much of their time, of course, campaigning for it. Of course, we would have liked to see the increase much higher, but the fact of the matter, some of the basic principles is the increase is universal, nobody's excluded. The positive thing, of course, for low-income Canadians, there is a recognition that it will, of course, cost them part of their salary, and there's, of course, a tax credit to go with that. Secondly, of course, on the increase by allowing higher income Canadians to pay on a higher salary, I think is a positive thing, because as you know, that was capped around $52,000 a year. I think that's a significant improvement, because those Canadians will get a better benefit as a result of paying on a higher income. And more importantly, this will be phased in over a period of time. Despite all the argument that's been made, I am yet to see some of those realities happening, because there's notice now will start in 2019, and of course will be phased in over a period of time. I think it'll have little or no impact on the economy. I also want to speak directly to the small businesses. Those individual owners who own those businesses are also people who need a pension when they retire. If they're fortunate enough to sell that business when they retire and able to earn from that, so be it. But also they need a decent pension, and this, of course, Canada Pension provide them with an opportunity to save for their retirement. The CPP is not a tax. It is a savings plan for all Canadians. We pool our investment together so we can have a better benefit when we retire. And of course, everything we know about the Canada Pension Plan is 75 years solvent. It's got a solid structure, and more importantly, is able to meet, of course, the obligation to ensure every Canadian get a benefit when they do retire. The last point I would make, and I say this coming back to the point of private pensions. Every benefit that's been promised by the CPP have been paid. I know the challenges we face with private pensions because we negotiate them. Of course, an employer go bankrupt, the plan is not fully funded, our members are directly impacted by it. This is a good thing for the economy, and it's a good thing that the province came together to support the federal government to do this across the country so we don't have a piecemeal system happening in Canada.
Yes. If I can get a couple comments from CFIB, please.
I think, as I've mentioned repeatedly, Canadians, small business owners are for retirement savings. In the 90s, when CPP needed to have increased premiums with no additional benefits, when the plan wasn't doing as well as it was now, our members voted to increase it. So they appreciate and enjoy the benefits CPP brings to them. But the difficulty for them is I unfortunately have to respectfully disagree with Mr. Youssef about whether or not it's a tax. If you have to pay something without a choice, it's a tax. When you owe money to the government at the end of the year, even though your business has not made any money, by definition for a business owner, that is a tax to them. So there has to be other ways. Are there ways that we can be innovative and look at what other countries around the world have done to increase retirement savings for their citizens without pinning it on the backs of small businesses? And there are options out there. The UK has looked at a voluntary model. Canadians, through the polling that we've done, have said that they appreciate the tax-free savings account and contributions to RRSPs over CPP because they can do more with them when they have those savings. They can pay for their first house. They can take out loans to educate themselves further. They can look into moving the results of their TFSA to other savings if they need them in that period in their life. Okay. So I think from our perspective, that's what our members think.
No,
yeah, quick one, Francisco.
Okay. To Ms. Trask, thank you for coming in from Saskatchewan. Even though you didn't have a full presentation, if you could kind of comment, please, on what seniors are experiencing in Saskatchewan and what your members are experiencing in terms of what issues they're facing today, please.
Thank you. Seniors in Saskatchewan, probably 20% of the senior population are living at or below the poverty level. I have recently moved into an apartment in Saskatoon, and I'm much more aware of it than I was in the country, although I've been involved in that kind of thing always. I really feel that while the increase in the Canada Pension Plan now will not help anybody like me or a lot of the older people, but when some of the younger people get up to that stage, I would be delighted if I were them and had an increase in Canada Pension.
Follow-up?
Very quick.
Thank you for those comments. And we did, our government, we did put an increase into the guaranteed income supplement of nearly $1,000 to help a lot of single seniors across Canada. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you both. Mr. Alpaz, 5-minute rounds.
Mr. Chair, and thank you again to all our witnesses for your testimony today. I'm just actually going to follow up on Mr. Sabera's comment. Ms. Trask, pardon me. First of all, would you agree with the information the CFIB has said that many seniors are just not aware that the current and changes that are proposed within this bill will not affect them?
Yeah. I've been a small business person. I ran a catering business for 43 years. I still run it a little bit. I think seniors are quite aware that they've worked hard all their lives and no fault of their own. Many of them are at that poverty level. And they're very conscious of the fact that CPP isn't sufficient. Any rises in the old age pension runs up to $3 or $4 a month.
Yeah.
And
well, would you say, though, that most seniors are aware that the enhancements that are proposed here will not affect them?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. No, just thought I'd ask that.
Absolutely.
Now, Mr. Jansen, just in regards to your membership, obviously CUPE right across the country, municipalities are probably have a great deal of members of your members. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're lots of municipal members.
And unlike the federal government, municipalities do have to run balanced budgets. Is that correct?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, okay. So I do know that from the economic fall update by the finance minister that there will be an additional cost to the federal government, and by 2020, 2021 to 2022 fiscal year, it'll almost be $1 billion. Do you think that there will be an additional charge, though, for municipalities?
Under the CPP legislation?
Yeah. That they'll be having to contribute as small
employers.
Yeah, as employers.
Yeah, and I mean, I would agree with the comments of the CLC on this, that the contribution rate increase is quite modest for most municipal workers. I say for the vast majority of municipal workers, you're looking at 1% of payroll on the employer side. That's with the notice period of a couple years and then a 5-year phase-in period.
Sure. Okay.
Now, we think that's well within the realm of affordability.
See, in British Columbia, I used to be a municipal councillor, and we were spending over 42% of our budget just on protective services, with the majority of it being in the emergency services. So you had police and firefighters, and obviously those are very highly paid positions. And so I'm, again, worried about the sustainability for municipalities, because they don't have the option the federal government does. They can't go into deficit. So that inevitably, I would assume, will go towards taxation, right? That's the only way to recover that.
Well, this is just one line item of a very complicated municipal budget, right? And what we expect is we're going to hear from employers that they're going to be having to increase their contributions, and we're going to hear about that at bargaining tables. That's going to be part of a complicated bargaining structure, as increases in costs always are.
So these changes may actually cause some compromise in other positions for bargaining for your members?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying we expect to be hearing that, and our position is going to be that the CPP increases are modest, affordable. We have a 7 to 9 year period to prepare for them, and we can find 1% in a municipal budget to make that happen.
When you say you can find, you mean that the municipal governments will have to ante up that money, and inevitably it will be coming from groups, because, for example, Penticton has one of the lower tax rates when it comes to charging small businesses and whatnot. But in British Columbia, they range everywhere from 1.66 times, so meaning that compared to a residential home owner, a business will pay 1.66 more. But in areas of British Columbia, sir, they'll pay 7 times more. So it's kind of like, and I'll go over to the CFIB. It's kind of like you're being asked right now to not only ante up for your own employees or for your members' employees, but you're actually going to be asked to pass on also for the municipal costs. Is that correct? And the federal costs, I guess, as well.
The costs in terms of?
Yeah, because obviously there's going to be taxes that need to be paid to pay for these increases. And in many places in British Columbia, some will pay 6 times what a residential homeowner will pay in taxation. So it's a bit of a double hit, is it not?
It could be. I suppose if the federal government had to increase additional taxes to then pay for CPP.
Well, they have no choice. They're either going to cut services or they're going to have to increase taxes.
I think federally, I won't speak to the municipal level, but federally CPP is funded as it sits right now. If that changes 5 years from now, if the economy for some reason doesn't continue to stabilize at least and grow, that's why I introduced my presentation with the chart about employment trends. Like, we're in an okay place, but not a great place, and there's no way of knowing 5 years from now when these proposed modest increases come in, that we will still be in this place, which is, I think already business owners are telling us they can't afford it.
So Ms. Trask raised an interesting point where she said that a lot of young people will appreciate this 40 years down the line, and maybe that's true. I guess we'll have to wait and see. And Ms. Trask, I hope you're there. But at the same token is a lot of young people are graduating with higher education now, higher debt, and if there's not a solid job market, and not everyone can work for a government, and do the good work that they do. But is that a concern that we're going to see less and less employment by your members?
I think, as I showed on slide 3, we have this very strange behavior this past month in the barometer where our numbers are crossing. That's been unusual. We haven't seen that in a number of years. We're hoping it's a blip. If it's not, and we'll know in the end of this month's barometer, then I think that is cause for concern.
So
there, Dan.
Did I get an extra minute and a half?
You got an extra minute and a half. Can you
Thank
imagine?
You. You're tough and fair.
For you. Yeah, that's
tough
really
and
fair. Mr. Ouellette, 5 minutes is what we'll start with.
Well, thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming here today. I just wonder what our lives would be like if we didn't have the Canada Pension Plan today, if it didn't exist. What we would do, what Canadians would do, and what levels of poverty. When I teach classes at the University of Manitoba and the University of Winnipeg on this, and we discuss pension plans, really senior poverty was epidemic in our society, and we might be like Mexico or something like that, and I don't think that's something that we want in our society. So I guess my first question is to Monique Moreau. I'm just wondering how many of your members from the Canadian Federation of Independent Businesses have defined benefit plans, pension plans, or any form of pension plans that they offer to their employees.
I can certainly come back to the committee with a bit more research. I do know, though, that we do offer group RSPs tend to be quite popular. Other savings mechanisms through employee bonuses, additional income at the end of the year. I'd have to do a bit more research in terms of that's not a piece that we necessarily have recent research on.
Well, thank you very much. But I was also looking at some of the stats you provided in 8, and you offer Canadians prefer TFSAs, RRSPs over a bigger CPP. But, tax-free savings accounts, registered, the number of responses, personal savings, other investments, Canada Pension Plan, voluntary retirement savings plan, none of the above. But, one of the things that we don't ask is, do people want to see their companies, forced to provide a defined benefit plan, and every company forced to offer a pension plan? Because what we've seen in the course of, a number of years is only 38.1% in 2014 of all employees actually had a registered pension plan in this country. And if unfortunately, if the private sector is unable to cover that, or to look for ways to ensure that people retire in a good way, that our seniors don't continue to live in poverty, I think then it falls on the government, the public, to ensure the public good. And I've seen the stats, and I just don't think, perhaps they can be onerous, but compared to other jurisdictions like in Singapore, it's only 12.5% and moving up somewhat. I don't think the rates are onerous compared to other OECD countries. I was just wondering if you could comment in your experience in other jurisdictions around the world and how competitive we might be.
I'm not as informed as you are in terms of other areas of the world that are in the depth of their pension programs. I do know that, as I explained earlier, that for our members, $11,000 for the average business is quite a bit of money. I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but if your margins are like 3-4%, which many of our grocery stores, hotel operators, you name it, at the end of the year, and you need to cough up an extra $1,000 per employee on average, that's not money that comes from thin air, right? The business owner has to come up with it, and they do.
But the interesting thing about it is, if you're a supermarket, you're only competing against other supermarkets. Or if you're a convenience store, you're only competing against other convenience stores, and it's right across the country in those examples. Meaning, it's kind of I see it kind of as a level playing field, but I also see that there's a long-term benefit to the society, and that seniors, when they have income to spend, they will spend that income because they're so near the poverty line anyways. It's not like they're going to be saving for 40 years. Well, perhaps they might be, but when you're 65 years old, it's very unlikely you'll make 105. But it could happen. I hope it happens. I guess I just wanted to ask Chris Roberts. I wanted to ask about the pension plans for the federal civil service. And when people generally retire from the federal civil service, they've been paying in for a contribution, defined benefits, and then when they hit 65, they see their CPP or their pension rolled back according to the amount they receive from CPP. And I was wondering if you had any talks or any discussions about that with the federal government, or if it's part of any negotiations.
Thanks for the question. Yes, indeed, most defined benefit plans are integrated with the CPP, and that means that the benefit, the workplace pension benefit, is adjusted to take into account the CPP, and the same with the contribution rate. So there's nothing in C26 which tells workplace plans how they're going to accommodate the gradual phased-in increase in contributions and the higher CPP benefit. That's up to the bargaining agents and the employers in a unionized situation, or the trustees where there's jointly trustee plans. It's really up to the plans and the stakeholders involved to decide how they want to adjust to that higher benefit and the higher contribution rate. There's a gradual phase-in, so there's lots of time for plans to adjust. And it's true, we do have to do a lot of education with members about...
Should we adjust, though? I guess is my question. If for instance, if you're, now I find a lot of civil servants or anyone working who gets a defined benefit plan or often start later their careers than might normally have happened. In the military, where I worked for over 20 years, people would join at 19. Now I've seen people who are in their late 40s who are joining the Canadian Armed Forces, so they don't have the same time to accumulate the same type of pension, yet they still see the same amount of rollback.
No, you're absolutely correct. I mean, there's a lot of predominantly women, public sector or third sector workers who have nominally defined benefit plans, but the pension benefit is very low, and they need a bump in their retirement incomes, and the CPP will provide that. So they may decide that they want the increased CPP benefit stacked on top of their existing workplace plan benefit, and that's entirely legitimate, but it's their decision.
Well, thank you very much, and I just want to say I'm very happy to be wearing purple today for violence against women.
We thank you for that, and many people are, which is a good sign. Mr. Albuteyev, 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. A few questions. Mr. Youssef, have you been a business owner yourself? Have you owned a business before?
No.
Okay. So I'll turn to CFIB. If we have the benefit on the payrolls, what do we call those?
I'm sorry?
Like the benefits on the payroll, on the company's payroll. Are these taxes or not?
To a business owner, if you have to pay it, you don't have a choice, it's usually a tax.
Exactly. So I've seen some of these charts and some of these results that you come, and I'm a small business owner before entering, and still a small business owner. The problem is that these taxes that is going to be going for years is going to be affecting businesses, and the dollar will, when the dollar moves in the economy from place to place to place to place, that's going to add taxes across the board. So it's going to be, the tax is going to be moving from place to place to place. So we're not only talking about 1% or a small percentage, we're talking about a huge number. And if we were to calculate just a simple calculation, and you probably can help me out on this, how many full-time employees we have in Canada? You have any idea?
How many full-time
employees?
I don't know the answer to that.
Can we suggest 14 million? Okay.
I don't know.
So on a 14 million, please. On a 14 million, and we're talking somewhere around $1,400 per employee per year. We're talking about $24 to $30 billion a year. Okay? That is a huge amount of money to be collected. Do you believe, and you think Canadians are convinced that this sum of money is going to be well invested and is it going to come back to pay back for the future retirement plan? Do we have that calculation anywhere? Have people been informed, like through consulting and going through the country? And Mr. Youssef suggests that he's been throughout the country from place to place to place. Have anyone asked that question?
Yes, may I?
Yes.
Yeah, the Department of Finance has done extensive modeling, and the whole fallacy of calling CPP contributions a tax is that it ignores the benefit side that comes from higher contributions. Benefits will increase, incomes will increase, and consumption expenditures will increase.
So that's an
and that
inflation.
has an impact on output, on employment, and the like. That's why in the medium to long run, there will be a net benefit from expanding the CPP.
But that's an inflation, isn't it?
Oh no, inflation is price movements. We're talking about the real expansion of the economy.
No, it's not an expansion. This is not an expansion. That's a tax.
No, it's not a tax. It's not a tax. It's a fundamental fallacy.
It is a tax. I think I'm
Go
right
ahead,
here.
go ahead,
Okay.
Ziad.
Question 2. Throughout consultation with Canadians, how aware you found Canadians on this issue? Are Canadians aware of what this expansion, that's tax, is really all about?
Well, I think Canadians are aware that for the 11 million people who have no workplace pension in this country, they're aware of the dire straits if we don't fix the system, what the conditions will be when they retire. And they understand, yes, it will cost them a little bit more to pay for their pension, but they know at the end of the day, they will get a benefit. Not a gamble that maybe if I put my RRSP, maybe the returns will be there. And the one thing about the Canada Pension Plan, it actually pays a benefit indexed to inflation. And workers appreciate the fact that, it is low. For the majority of Canadians who retire with a Canada Pension benefit, is very low. So they understood that, yes, they would have to pay a little bit more. But for that little bit more, they would get a better benefit when they retire at the end of the day. Yes, and of course it's true that your argument that it's going to cost employers a bit. What's the other side of the argument? The other side of the argument, let's subsidize everybody who we can't allow them to have a better pension, because that's the way only we can do it. The Canada Pension Plan for majority of 11 million Canadians who don't have a workplace pension is the one retirement income they can say for certainty they will get when they get to retirement, and if they're fortunate to have other assets or other savings, so be it. But I could tell you without a doubt that they recognize, yes, it will cost a little bit more, and they're prepared to pay that a little bit more because they know at the end of the day they will get a benefit, because every benefit that has been promised by the Canada Pension Plan has been paid to Canadians throughout this country.
What about the businesses?
Well, exactly. We did a survey of small business owners in Ontario who said they would support an expanded CPP because they know at the end of the day they would get a better benefit as individuals who need to have an income when they also retire.
This is the first time I hear that business will really accept.
I'll be more than happy to share you the study.
Have you done it in Alberta?
I'll be more than happy to share the study.
Have you done it in Alberta? I will be happy to see it,
yes.
for sure. Have you done anything in Alberta on that?
No, I'm not. I'm said it was a survey, poll that was done in Ontario of small business owners, recognizing, yes, of course, they would have to pay for their Canada pension. They recognize also they would get a benefit by paying a little bit more for their Canada pension.
That's in Ontario?
It's Ontario.
Okay. Well, we believe in business.
Last question.
No, it's just we believe in doing things with the people. We represent the people. We see people at the door. We got people complaining to us. Okay, last week in NAFTA, how many people, business owners, small business owners, and I didn't like mine, they're complaining about this because this is a tax. This is going to add a burden on their payroll. At the end of the day, with their slim margins, they'll be facing either reducing employment or shutting down some operations or paying money that they don't have, which is also coming out of their pocket at the wrong time.
In the 90s, when we reformed the CPP, and employers had to pay a little bit more than workers, everybody said the country, there'll be an incredible crisis. We end up paying a little bit more in premiums, the workers did, and employers did. Guess what happened? The economy grew, the GDP grew, and the country was better for it.
That's not a factor of CPP expansion.
It was a result of the CPP expansion.
Mr. Youssef, Mr. Bouteyev, we'll have to cut the discussion there. Kind of an interesting exchange, a little difference of opinion. Ziad, you're not far off on your numbers, though. In 2015, there's 14.6 million full-time employees, according to Stats Canada, 3.4 million part-time employees, so for the record, but there is a difference of opinion whether it's an investment or a tax. Before I go to Mr. Duval, Mr. Greywall, before I go to you, Raj, there's been a fair bit of discussion both days, yesterday and today, on the concern about the child rearing and disability dropout provisions, so that they don't, of the current CPP, that they don't apply to the expanded CPP. Does anybody know what it would cost if that was in the system? And if you don't, that's fine. I don't think we asked the department yesterday what that would cost. And maybe to you, Mr. Youssef, in your discussions across the country, I would expect with the provinces, I haven't had this kind of discussion, I don't think anybody on our side has as yet. If an amendment was made, if there was a change in that clause, and maybe Mr. Champagne, you might have some information on this, but if there was a change in that clause, as a number of you have suggested, this is a complicated place to get where we are. And so if there's if it was a mistake, it was a mistake. But if there was a change in that clause, would it jeopardize the agreement with the provinces? Would it have to be, would we have to go back and renegotiate? Where would we end up? Does anybody have any answers on the cost? I believe Mr. Roberts, you might have a point
On the cost.
When the chief actuary assessed the cost of the initial child rearing dropout in the CPP, the cost was found to be very modest, 0.1% by 2000, I think 0.3% by 2025, something like that. You can find that actuarial report from just after 1977 when the first dropout was added. We asked former Chief Actuary Bernard Dussault for his opinion, and he did a back-of-the-envelope calculation based on those numbers that would suggest that the cost of adding the child rearing dropout to the enhanced benefit would be even more modest than that going forward. So given that we now have the Chief Actuary's 28th actuarial report on the CPP, confirming that the agreed or the legislated additional contribution rates to support the enhanced benefit are sufficient to fund that benefit over the long term, and there's a bit of wriggle room in what's possible. We think it is very likely possible to reintroduce or extend that child rearing dropout to the enhanced benefit within the cushion, the room that exists. But I think that's something the Office of the Chief Actuary will have to undertake.
Okay, on Mr. Youssef.
Yeah, in regard to whether this was ever anticipated or discussed during the entire period of the enhancement, it was not. I could say that without any hesitation. And it will not jeopardize the agreement that was reached. Because it was clear that anything that was currently in the CPP that was protected and provided for was never intended to be taken away, both from women or, for that matter, from those in terms of the disability dropout period also. I do believe, by the way, and obviously the finance officials were here, I can't speak for them, I believe they made a mistake in the drafting of the legislation, and they should own up to it and fix it. Simple as that. It will not jeopardize the agreement that we reached with the provinces across the country.
Okay. Has anybody else got anything to add? We'll have to check that out. Thank you for that information. Mr. Greywald, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the witnesses for coming here today. So the question really is, like, what drove the expansion of the CPP? And if you look at a bunch of research that's been done, the single biggest factor that led to the expansion of the CPP is the dire state of the traditional company pensions. So here's a statistic. So in 1971, about 48% of men were covered by defined benefit plans, according to StatsCan. By 2011, that portion had already fallen to half, to 25%, and it's declining every year since. So there's actually a legitimate concern, and that's why CPP was expanded, and this was a commitment made in our campaign, and we're happy to deliver on it. And something should be said, the fact that how CPP is actually expanded, that you have to get 7 provinces that represent 2/3 of the Canadian population to agree to something. And if anybody that's lived in this country knows that that is not an easy feat. So congratulations to our government, and we deserve a pat on the back. But more seriously, the concerns amongst small businesses, and Ms. Moreau, when you speak about your membership and the Canadian Federation of Independent Businesses, and you have these statistics, and I'm a finance guy from background, and always like the numbers, but the devils are in the details. You have 109,000 members, right? And all 109,000 receive your survey?
Correct. The vast majority of these, the data I have for you is from, we contracted out to Ipsos Reid to do a poll. So the numbers are smaller than you would normally see in the response rates for our own surveys, which
But that's extremely telling of the responses, right? So one of the charts that you have here, Business Barometer Index and GDP,
yes,
is responded by 651 people, which represents 0.5% of your entire membership.
If I can just intervene there, that's because the poll is monthly, and we don't poll our entire membership every month. We try to only poll 10,000 per month, so that they're not
So
getting.
even then, 651 responses of 10,000 businesses is like not even a drop in the bucket. To say that these people represent the voice of Canadian small businesses, in my humble opinion, is a little bit misleading.
The only piece I'll say there is that this piece of research is the only research that gets at the non-stock market economy. It's used by the Bank of Canada. It's used by Bloomberg. It's a very well-respected piece of research that our organization has developed over the last 15 years.
The story isn't told then, right? So you're sitting here advocating that small businesses are against CPP expansion.
No,
right?
Against the expansion, correct. They support CPP.
And you're basing the fact that your organization has that mandate based on these survey results.
That's how we get our mandate on all issues, yes.
Okay, and so then I would seriously look at the methodology on how you get a mandate, because that does not reflect the majority of businesses that operate in Canada. I represent one of the fastest growing areas in this country. A lot, including my family, owns a lot of small businesses. They recognize the need for an expanded CPP because of the benefit to their workers. Now, it's not always a bottom line approach. Right? I refuse to believe that all small businesses only focus on the bottom line, because if they have employees that are protected by an enhanced CPP, that makes their employees work harder for them, because they don't have these concerns of saving for retirement, because they know that their employer is looking after them and their government is looking after them. And the CPP is an extremely well-managed pension fund.
We agree.
It does better than competitors around the world, and more importantly, it's well-diversified, and it's beyond insolvent, I believe, for like 100-something years, 75. And like the math of insolvency doesn't make any sense. So I want to hear your comments on that, on the fact that, in my opinion, this does not represent the voice of small businesses in Canada, because if you go around and you talk to small businesses, majority of them are support, because they recognize that if their employees are taken care of, that benefits their bottom line in the long run.
So I hear what you're saying. I think I don't pretend that all small business owners feel that way. That's why you don't have 100% on all the different data points that we have. There are business owners that disagree, that they believe that the CPP should be expanded. But as an organization for the last 45 years, we've always taken the majority voice. We're a very democratic organization in that perspective. It's one member, one vote. And we do poll our members regularly on a variety of issues. So I think in terms of...
I would highly encourage you, your entire organization, to make sure that they go out and get more responses back from their memberships, because this is not telling. And to rely on these results to say that the 651 represents 109,000 businesses, plus or minus 3%, in my humble opinion, does not carry weight.
I hear you. I have to say that's the first time we've gotten feedback on the business barometer. But I will speak with our chief economist, because, as I mentioned, it's been a very respected tool. The Bank of Canada governor, who we're meeting with next Monday, uses it as the only measure of the non-stock market economy. So we've taken his seal of approval as a sign that this is good research, and like with Bloomberg Canada.
I would say the same thing to the Bank of Canada governor if he was here, right?
All
At
right.
the end of the day, it doesn't make much sense.
We'll have to cut it there. Mr. Duval and then Ms. O'Connell. Mr. Duval isn't here. Ms. O'Connell. Oh, we'll go to Ms. O'Connell and then come back to you, so you get Ms. O'Connell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you all for coming. I just want to talk about following up with the slides here from Mr. Greywall was just talking about from CFIB. You mentioned in the survey, and again, this one you had a little bit more responses. You had 2,003 responses. And it asked, employed Canadians oppose a CPP hike if it means a wage freeze or cut. Did you ever poll businesses or employees if they would support a CPP hike or retire in poverty? Which would they prefer?
Or if it was what, sorry?
Retire in poverty. Have to use food banks, have to make a decision between paying for medication or food, deciding whether or not they pay for hydro. Was that ever a question?
No, we did not ask that question.
Okay. And in regards to the responses, and this is kind of following up on Mr. Ouellette's question, have you ever polled your membership about the cost of businesses providing their own pension plans then?
Yes, that I have, that information. I can tell you that the vast majority of that research was when the PRPPs were being introduced several years ago. And a third of our members said that once they were rolled out, that they would be interested in providing PRPP to their businesses. So we know that...
But they haven't?
Because the PRPPs aren't enforced across the country yet. The only ones that are in place is in Quebec, and the uptake there is mandated for 5 or more. So I'm not sure that would answer your question. The 4 other provinces, I believe it's a technical federal issue that's holding them out from... They have provincial buy-in already, but they're waiting for approval from the federal government, and then the other provinces have not put forth legislation yet.
Thank you. Mr. Youssef and Mr. Roberts, when Mr. Roulette was asking these questions, you also looked like you wanted to comment on the idea of private pension plans, and I'm assuming they're declined. Did you want to add to this?
Just there was a specific question from the member about pension coverage in small and medium-sized enterprises. According to Statistics Canada, it's about 2%. 2%. So 2% of micro and small businesses offer registered pension plans. That's from Statistics Canada.
Just on the point that to respond in the PRPP, whereas Quebec is not the only province that have legislation that actually allows it to be part of the system. Every place else where the legislation exists to set up a PRPP account, not a single employer is taking advantage of it. So again, there's a bit of a fallacy that, give us this great tool and magically people are going to do what? By the way, the tool is no different than an RSP account.
Right. And just, okay.
What's in, and then we'll come back.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Briefly, this may be a misinformation, but my understanding is that there's that things are being held up federally on a technical issue for those 4 provinces that do have the legislation in place. The other piece of it, the difference between a PRPP and an RRSP is that they're meant to be really low cost, unlike RRSPs, which can be very expensive to administer. The way the legislation was designed was to make them low cost and portable, and give all Canadians really a different option for savings.
Thank you. And Ms. Trask, I just wanted to ask to clarify, your membership does, or your organization does support enhancement of CPP. I think you mentioned in your response to a question that the concern is that while, yes, retirees right now won't benefit, but what you're saying is, given the, I just want to make sure I understood correctly, given the pressures on seniors today and retirees today, and although this government has made financial enhancements there, you don't want to see the future generations constrained as some seniors are living today with the current conditions, and fearing that people are not even saving as much today as they might have done previously.
That's true. A lot of these people are concerned for their own children when they get older, or grandchildren, and that's where this is going to benefit down the road more. The seniors in general in Saskatchewan are very concerned about that, as well as in my own little apartment building, it's 240 people. I dare say there's only a third of them that have a car, because now on limited income, they can't afford a car, they can't afford their medicine. Yes, it's critical that they do have more money when they get older.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Duval, last round of questions, unless you won, Mr. Champagne. Mr. Duval.
Thank you. Just a quick question and to Mr. Jansen. Right now, the CPP delivers a pretty secure pension. They know what they're going to get. They think at the end, anyways, they know what they're going to get. But they have no idea how much they're saving towards that CPP pension. And what can they expect to receive when they retire? So do you think the CPP should improve its reporting to Canadians? And if so, how?
It's a great question. It's to To even know how much you're going to receive from CPP, you have to go on Service Canada and create a login and get your CPP statement. This is not something that's automatically sent to Canadians every year. We automatically, everyone sees the deduction from their paycheck every 2 weeks, so you're aware of what's going in, but as you say, you're not aware of what's going out. Typically in a workplace pension plan, the plan administrator would have to provide an annual pension statement to every member saying this is how much you've put in, this is how much benefits you've earned to date, and this is your expected pension on retirement. I think it would be entirely appropriate for the CPP to do something similar to that so that we don't only see what's going out every 2 weeks, and so we can prepare for what we will receive under the plan when we retire.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Champagne, do you have a quick question?
If there's time, Mr. Chair, obviously,
Yes, you do.
I'll be... Bonjour, d'abord, je voudrais vous remercier à chacun d'entre
Good afternoon. I'd like to thank you all for testifying here today. Like you did, I've had an opportunity to travel across Canada and hear people on the Canada Pension Plan. I'd like to ask our CSN colleagues, how do members of your organization see our approach, expanding the plan for today's and tomorrow's workers? After that, I'll have a question for Mr. Yusuf, if I have time. So I'd like to know, from your members' point of view, how do they see our approach? Do they understand it? And do they see the long-term benefits for people who are starting out on jobs now? CSN members are very concerned with all issues pertaining to retirement. In Quebec, we've had many people talking to us, and we've had many reforms to pension plans. So what's happening with the CPP and its expansion is seen as an enhancement of a pillar of the entire pension support system. So yes, it is a matter that interests everybody because it is universal. The plan makes it possible to provide everyone who works, even if they have their own businesses. If they don't have a private pension plan in their companies, they can take advantage of this universal pension plan, which provides all Canadians and Quebecers with money upon retirement. And with the changes, an improved retirement. So that's what we said in our brief. On the whole, people are happy about the changes. They're happy about having better retirement. And the concern, which one of the pillars on which the entire pension system rests, is going to be strengthened and not weakened. Employers, of course, who have corporate plans will be somewhat more disengaged. That's a trend we've been seeing, because the CPP is a government program, but the income of both Canadians and Quebecers has been declining in recent years. So people agree with the changes. They would even like the changes to go a little further.
voice in our country, talking about employees and workers across our nation. Tell us how the CPP enhancement is transformational. You talk about when we created CPP in this country, this was a landmark in our history. Tell us how much you see from your own perspective, with your unique voice in this country, how the enhancement to this CPP is going to be as transformational as when we created it for Canadian workers.
Well, for one, for future the workforce, this of course will give them a better benefit when they retire. The younger people will get the greatest benefit of what this enhancement will provide. But those who have within another 10 years or 15 years to work, they will also see an enhancement to their benefit by the time they retire. It will provide greater benefit for Canadians to know that, you know, ultimately they don't have to live in abject poverty. We wish of course, the increase would have been greater. The uniqueness about the improvement is universal. It's not targeted, as some would like to suggest, and it includes all Canadians at the end of the day. And I think the reality of this is that workplace pension have not grown significantly in the last 2 or 3 decades. As a matter of fact, it's diminishing because of the pressures on workplace pension, low interest rate, and what have you. This will bring some stability also, I believe, to workplace pension, because in many cases, workplace pension is integrated with the CPP. On the other hand, of course, I think like Ms. Tast is here, the reality is I think we hope another generations of Canadians, when they become in their senior age, don't have to live in poverty in this country. If you spend a lifetime working, like me, I'm fortunate to belong to a workplace pension. I will have a decent pension when I retire. You as members of parliament, by the way, don't have to be stressed about what you're going to get. You're going to get a decent pension. I think Canadians are entitled to the same thing because they work just as hard as the rest of us. And I think it's a profound moment in our country. It needs to be acknowledged. It took a lot of great effort on our part because we spent 8 years campaigning on this important part. And many Canadians share in this vision that we could do better. And I think we are doing better. So again, I want to compliment, of course, the government, but I want to compliment our members and our activists across this country who worked extremely hard in the last 8 years to convince the provinces and the federal government this is the right thing to do.
Thank you. Okay, we will good high note to end on. Maybe with that, I would thank each and everyone for their presentations, putting together their briefs, and answering questions here today. So thank you one and all. Tomorrow we meet at 3:30 in the Valor building, same subject. So we'll come back and do it all over again. Meeting adjourned.